What's up, everybody? My name's Connor, and you are watching Who Gives a Dram. And on today's episode, we are going to be reviewing a heavy hitter. We're going to be reviewing the January 2021 release of Elijah Craig 12-year barrel-proof straight Kentucky bourbon whiskey. What's up, everyone? Another episode. How's everybody doing this week? Hope everyone's doing all right. My name's Connor, and you're watching Who Gives a Dram. I hope everyone is enjoying their week. I hope everyone is enjoying or had a good weekend. I hope everyone's been getting some good whiskey, drinking some good whiskey, smoking some good cigars, whatever you do. I hope it was good. Before we get into the episode, quickly. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Who Gives a Dram. Also, make sure you are subscribed on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. I want to give a shout out to Snoot Glass. If you want to drink whiskey out of the same glasses that I drink whiskey out of, then you should go to www.snootglass.com, put in the promo code WGAD20 for 20% off your entire order. 20% off your entire order. It's a great deal. All you got to do is go to www.snootglass.com, put in the promo code WGAD20. And lastly, but surely not leastly, does that make sense? Yes. Lastly, but surely not leastly, we're going to give a shout out to our partner and who this podcast is brought to you by, thegreatvinemedia.com. Go to www.thegreatvinemedia.com for all things New England sports, movies, TV, whiskey, pop culture, news, you name it. We do it. So go to www.thegreatvinemedia.com. Got a lot of cool content planned in the future. So like I said, I hope everyone's having a good weekend. I hope everyone is having a good week. We have a really good whiskey on the podcast this week. Last week, we did Elijah Craig small batch. We did the store pick, which I loved. I rated it a 9.0. I love Elijah Craig. I'm starting to really enjoy Elijah Craig exponentially more than I ever did in the past. So I'm really excited to do this whiskey this week. As I mentioned, we are doing the January 2021 release of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. More specifically, this is batch A121. And I'll explain what that means here in a second in terms of how Elijah Craig does their barrel proof releases. But for those who don't know, I want to explain a little bit of what barrel proof means, because we have done a barrel proof whiskey on the podcast a few weeks ago. We did Booker's Granny's batch, which I enjoyed. That was a barrel proof bourbon. So, and you'll hear a lot of people these days talk about barrel proof, because it's becoming more and more popular. People enjoy whiskey that's coming straight from the barrel, which is essentially what barrel proof is, because you have a lot more room to play around with it. You can add water to dilute the proof a bit, so you can proof it down to what you would like, to what you're suitable with, and that releases a lot of the times it will push flavors forward and take some flavors back, depending on a whole lot of factors, but depending on the whiskey, depending on the amount of water, and so on and so forth. But barrel proof whiskey is becoming much more prevalent in the whiskey world today. There are so many notable barrel proof whiskeys. I actually wrote down a bunch right here. Some of the more well-known ones, and these are all bourbons. You have Booker's Bourbon, which is a barrel proof whiskey. Wild Turkey Rare Breed is a barrel proof. Knob Creek has a barrel proof offering. Stag Jr., the little brother to George T. Stagg of Buffalo Trace, is a barrel proof whiskey. We have Maker's Mark cask strength, which is pretty easy to get. You can find that at most liquor stores. Weller Full Proof, a bottle that has eluded me to this day. I have never seen it, and I would really like it, but I can't find it. Larceny recently released a barrel proof, several batches of barrel proof whiskeys, which actually won the Whiskey of the Year. I believe for Whiskey Advocate voted it Whiskey of the Year last year. So it kind of blew up in popularity. It's become allocated as what happens when whiskey becomes popular. We all can't have good things all the time. Peerless Rye is a barrel proof. The only reason I say that is because I'm looking at the bottle right there. 1792 Full Proof, another barrel proof whiskey that's delicious. Michter's Barrel Strength, which is a whiskey that is I know they have a rye whiskey. I'm not sure if they have a barrel strength bourbon, but I know they have the rye whiskey because A, we just did Michter's Rye a few weeks ago, and B, we might be doing Michter's Barrel Strength very soon on the show. So stay tuned for that. Also, kind of barrel strength, but I don't think it's technically classified as barrel strength, is Old Forester 1920. One of my favorite pours as of late, but it's like 115 proof, and the reason it's that proof is because at the time when Old Forester was granted a license to sell whiskey for medicinal purposes, the barrel strength number at that time was always around 115 proof. So that's kind of an ode to the old days when whiskey was outlawed due to prohibition, which is why Old Forester 1920 is called the Prohibition batch. A few fun facts for you. But you might be thinking, Connor, I listen to your podcasts. I'm trying to get into whiskey. I'm trying to learn more about this great spirit. You keep on saying all these delicious whiskeys that I want to try, but what the hell does barrel proof mean? Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to read the exact definition of barrel proof according to ATF ruling 79-9. Barrel proof whiskey is barrel proof means that, quote, the bottling proof is not more than 2 degrees lower than the proof established at the time the spirits were gauged for tax determination. Now, tax determination is gauged when the barrels are dumped for bottling. So that's going to determine, I suppose, the tax rate on said whiskey, maybe. I don't know. But that is why you always see barrel strengths that are bottled at decimal point proofs. For example, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof A121 is bottled at 61.8%, which is 123.6 proof. So the reason they do that is because they want to stay within 2 degrees of whatever it's coming out of the barrel at. So I would be willing to bet this came out of the barrel probably at 125.6 proof. Right around there is what I would assume it came out of the barrel at. I would assume it got proofed down, but that's not always the case. Sometimes, especially in bourbon's case, when it's aged in Kentucky in a warmer, more humid climate, the aging in the barrel can make the whiskey proof go up rather than down. So it's all dependent on the whiskey, where it's aged, where it's located, what it's aging in. Has a lot to do with how the barrel proof is going to come out. Regardless, barrel proof whiskeys are some of the best whiskeys on the planet. Scotches and Irish whiskeys both also have barrel proof examples as well. Barrel proof can also be classified as barrel strength or cask strength. For example, Redbreast offers a cask strength offering in their Irish whiskey line, and I know Ardbeg also has a cask strength, or it might be called barrel strength line that they do as well. So a barrel proof whiskey is essentially what you're getting out of the barrel. It's being dumped from the barrel into the bottle, and that's what you're getting. So to me, it's exactly what the distiller, the master distiller, wants you to taste when you're drinking that particular bottle. Now, it's not for everybody. I wouldn't suggest, if you're just getting into whiskey, to drink a barrel-proof bourbon or rye or scotch or Irish right off the bat. I don't think that'd be a good idea. I think it's going to be too much, and I think you're just going to be overpowered and probably get a sour taste in your mouth from whiskey in the future. But if you've been drinking whiskey, if you're on this, if you've been a fan of Who Gives a Dram since episode 1, you're following along with me. You've been along the ride for the past whoever knows how many months. 4, 8, 12, 16, 17, 20. This is actually 6 months. Is it 6 months? Is this episode 24 or 25? This is going to be episode... I got to check this out real quick. Sorry, guys. This is going to be episode 25. So that in itself is a big deal as well. Episode 25. I mean, that's 25 episodes. But yeah, 4, 8, 12, 16. So last week's episode was 6 months. I should have mentioned that. Didn't. So we've been doing this for 6 months now, almost every week except for 1 week. So if you've been following along this entire time, then you know where you're at in your whiskey game. You understand what you're drinking, I hope, to a degree, and you can probably start drinking that barrel strength bourbon. Now, let's get into the actual bottle that we're going to be drinking today. So this is a bottle of, as I've said multiple times, Elijah Craig A121 barrel proof straight Kentucky bourbon. It's aged for 12 years in the barrel, and it's bottled straight from the barrel at, what did I say, 123.6 proof. So this is what was in the barrel, 123.6 proof. Not chill filtered, or it's non-chill filtered. It's not cut with any water to proof it down. It's exactly what's coming out of the barrel. This is the first release of 3 that Elijah Craig is offering this year in terms of their barrel proof bourbons. And this MSRP's for around $60 to $70. I've seen stores sell it for upwards of $80. I think it's definitely worth $80. For me, I like barrel proof, so I'll pay, like, what's an extra $10? You know what I mean? You just don't get McDonald's that week. But if you're a real stickler, then I don't know if for you $80 would be of an appropriate price, but for me it is. So the A121 in Elijah Craig barrel proof standards means that it is the first batch of the year 2021. Let's go through it. The first letter is A. Now, there are 3 batches released every year from Elijah Craig in their barrel proof series. There's batch A, batch B, and batch C. So that's what that letter represents, A, B, C. The first, second, or third batch of barrel proof bourbon that Elijah Craig is offering that year. The second letter is going to be the month that it's released. For example, the second letter in this whiskey is 1. This whiskey was brought to the public, was released in January. The second release will probably be in May, and the third release will probably be in September. That's typically how Elijah Craig does it. And then the 21 means the year. So all 3 batches will end with 21. For example, I also have 2 other bottles of barrel proof Elijah Craig because it's one of my favorite whiskeys. I have batch B520 and I have batch C920 in my arsenal, in my whiskey arsenal. So B520 being May of, or the second batch that was released in May 2020, and C being the third batch released in September 2020. So I have the last 3 releases of Elijah Craig's barrel proof offerings, and are we going to do head-to-heads on the podcast of all 3? Or at least 2, because my B520 is almost gone? Yeah, probably, in some capacity. I don't know how. But as I said, this A121, I obviously have not had a lot. I've had a little tiny sippy poo when I first bought it just to try it. But this is going to be my first time really enjoying it. a little fun fact about Elijah Craig. I first drank Elijah Craig barrel proof bourbon at my local cigar bar, and I paired it with a fairly medium bodied cigar. I don't remember exactly what cigar it was, and I paired it with a pour of B520. I believe it was B520, and at that time, it became my favorite pour I've ever had. Now, I've had very good pours since then. I don't know if I consider Elijah Craig Barrel Proof my favorite pour, but you know when you drink whiskey and you get that euphoric feeling that it kind of encompasses a moment in time. That was just a good moment in time for me. I was at one of my favorite spots with some of my favorite people, smoking one of my favorite cigars, drinking whiskey, and it just happened to be a delicious whiskey. And since then, I've always loved Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, and I was looking for it for a very long time, and I found this A121 when it came out, and I was fortunate enough to have some really cool whiskey friends that I traded a C920 bottle for, and the same guy, it's actually, what else did I just shouted out Adam on the podcast a few weeks ago, but it's Adam, my buddy Adam, who he also gave me the rest of his B520, which has like maybe a pour and a half left in it, so I've been kind of saving it. So that was really cool of him to do. But nonetheless, we're going to open this right now. Terrible cork opening right there, but don't need a lot when you're drinking barrel strength bourbon. It's definitely a dark amber color, definitely a darker color than most whiskeys we've had on the podcast, and that's to be expected with the barrel strength bourbon. It's not being cut with anything to proof it down, so you're getting it. It's really taking on that oak and wood flavor, especially this Elijah Craig because it's a 12-year. So 12 years bottled straight from the barrel is bound to have a dark color. So let's get right into what we sniff. I get a lot of earthy notes right off the bat. Grass, maybe. Grass and minerals. And I've written down what the website says, and we're going to compare it to what the website says. Ooh. Be careful when you're trying to stick your nose all the way in the glass and you're swirling around, because that alcohol comes up quick, especially in the snoot glass. This snoot glass is made for nosing and tasting whiskey. So you are going to get the most full and real experience when it comes to nosing whiskey when you're using these snoot glasses. So right off the bat, like I said, I get a lot of the first thing that came to my mind was like a grassy, but not a very strong grass, but the more I smell it, I get those standard vanilla and oak notes, but I get like a grassy mineral nose that's now taking a back seat to that vanilla and oak. It's very strong. You can tell this is going to be, it's actually, the nose isn't very strong, but from what you can smell, you can tell that this is going to be a heavy hitter. Yeah, I get a lot of, now it's coming through, a bit of a sweeter smell to it, a bit of a sweeter vanilla, caramel almost, but still a little bit of that earthiness, grassy, I don't know how to explain it, just like a mineral smell to it. It smells great. Oh, whiskey smells great, to be honest. What does the website say? The website says caramel with toasted oak, fruit notes of apple and orange. I don't get the fruit, but I do get the caramel or caramel. Do you say caramel or caramel? Because I typically say caramel. I don't know why I just said caramel. That's strange. Don't know why I just said that. But I do get that caramel sweetness. Oak is to be expected, but I get that like minerally grassy note to it as well. Very strange. Well, we'll get right into it, you guys. So, to another week of Who Gives a Dram, to another week on the podcast, and to another week of drinking whiskey with you guys, my favorite people to drink whiskey with. Cheers. Oh, yeah, right off the bat. Huge punch in the face. Spice gives way to a really pleasant sweetness. Really, this is a very, very good dram. Spice off the bat, it gives way to a very pleasant and almost light sweetness, and then that translates into a big finish on the back end. So it almost starts big, kind of goes down as it hits, the saliva and starts to go down your throat. Then once it is down, you get that big finish. That's the best part about barrel proofs is the big finish. I always get a big finish. I like to be felt like I'm getting punched in the face when I'm drinking a barrel proof bourbon, and I always get that with Elijah Craig. So again, the nose is staying the same after the first sip. Get right back into it. The second sip's a bit tamer. Sweetness forward. I'm going to say, again, that caramel, vanilla. I don't really get those minerally notes that I got on the nose. That might have been just been like a first time smelling thing. Definitely more of that toasted oak. Big finish, big spicy finish going down the hatch. It's really what you would think of for a high proof whiskey. I'm sure that if you don't drink whiskey, you're going to think this is really rough. To me, I find it very pleasant. I actually find it very mellow for a barrel proof. I thought the Booker's Granny's batch had a bit more of a kick to it. However, that doesn't mean that this isn't a whiskey that's going to punch you in the face as well. Sweetness forward, big spicy finish. Right off the bat, it punched you in the face. Transitions down to a nice sweet caramel, almost like floral, vanilla-y palate, and then transitions again into a big spicy finish. Yeah, this stuff's good, man. This stuff is good. Very good. The taste, according to the website, is rich vanilla, caramel, and butterscotch, along with spices of black pepper and cinnamon at the back of the palate. Yeah. So that's exactly what I got, actually. I got that vanilla and caramel. Butterscotch, I guess, kind of the same as caramel. And then it's on the back end, it's spicy, black pepper. Cinnamon, yeah, I can get that because to me, cinnamon is like a sweeter spice. It's a baking spice, a sweeter spice. But it is prevalent that it's not just a sweet spice. There's a overall just spicy note, like a legit spicy note to it. So very good whiskey. Yeah, man, this is the real deal. I'm excited to compare this batch to the other batches, to the B520 and the C920, so we can compare and contrast. But this by itself, especially for an excuse me, I keep burping. Especially for an MSRP of like $60 to $70, you're looking at a steal with this whiskey. $80 is probably what this whiskey is worth. If you can find this for $60, buy out the shelf. If you can find it for $70, I would dish out the wallet to buy an extra bottle. I'm going to give this a 9.1. I'm going to give it a point above Elijah Craig Small Batch. This is a fantastic pour, and it's something that if you're a seasoned whiskey drinker, you'll appreciate the complexity that this barrel proof brings. If you are not a seasoned whiskey drinker, I mean, if you like whiskey, I think you're going to like it. I'm not saying don't drink this if you don't drink whiskey, if you haven't been drinking whiskey for a long time. To each their own. I just think that it takes a lot to appreciate the complex. It takes a lot to get past that initial alcohol taste and to appreciate that sweetness you're getting from the barrel, from the cured, or not the cured oak, from the, the toasted oak flavoring that you get. It takes a while to appreciate that. Not to say that I'm some type of expert. I just think that it's definitely prevalent. I can definitely taste it on the palate. So 9.1 Elijah Craig Barrel Proof A121 batch Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 9.1 official Who Gives a Dram rating. And I did find some cool news within the whiskey world here before we say goodbye on the podcast here. 2 new releases that I figured out we're going to be releasing this year, both scotches. So we haven't really talked about Scotch a whole lot in the past few weeks since we did Oban 14. Ardbeg is releasing a new expression this year on Ardbeg Day, which is in June of 2021. Obviously, it's in June. Ardbeg Day is every June. I think it's June 5th. Pretty sure it's June 5th. It's called Ardbeg Scorch, and it's going to be priced at $120 or $140. I think the $120 is member pricing, $140 is to the general public. It's going to be bottled at 46% ABV, and this is the coolest part. This is why this might be a must-buy. It's named after a legendary dragon that lived on Islay, from Scottish or Islay folklore. So that's a pretty cool concept. I'm excited to see what their bottle looks like because Ardbeg has some pretty sweet bottles with the Wee Beastie, the Anoa. They all just look really cool. They're very clean, dark tones for that smoky, just burning scotch. And another cool one, this is almost unbelievable. Talisker, which is an island scotch or a Highland scotch, Speyside, whatever you want to call it, is releasing a 43-year-old expression of whiskey. And it's going to be called Expedition Oak, the Atlantic Challenge. The barrels, the staves that the whiskey is aged in have made trips around the Atlantic. I think it just said one voyage around the Atlantic. They're only making 1,830 bottles. It's going to be bottled at 49.7% alcohol by volume, just under 100 proof. And they're going to be priced at a measly, so maybe, probably save up for like a week, a measly $4,000 a bottle, MSRP. So, when you have $4,000 after saving for a week, you should go out and buy one of these bottles because there's only going to be a hair over 1,800 of them. So that's some cool whiskey news that I found while perusing the web before we started the podcast. But I'm going to end it right there. We're going to end it right there. So thank you guys so much for checking out the podcast. As always, I appreciate every single one of you guys that listen to me week in and week out. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Who Gives a Dram. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify so you never miss an episode. And you can, the episodes come right to your phone once I release an episode. Usually every Wednesday is what it's been equating to. Yeah, that's about it. I've got some cool stuff planned in the future with some cool guests that I'm lining up to come on the show. So pretty soon we're going to be expanding our reach here on Who Gives a Dram so we can have some cool people who also love whiskey as much as we do on the show. and welcome them with open arms and have some good conversation and drink some good whiskey. So I'm really excited about that. That's coming up very soon, along with some other very cool projects that I have up my sleeve. So as always, my brother Nick Boss, he's going to play us out. Pretty New Diamond. Find it on Apple Music and on Spotify, and follow him on Instagram at Nick Bossy Music. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.